Okay. Hey, I'm Noah.
Yeah, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and whoever else might be watching.
This is a special week of comic reviews because we're doing this from the beautiful Hunter College in uptown Manhattan, upper midtown Manhattan.
We're in the high 60s.
Yeah.
It's odd because I have no way of knowing what our sound levels are here. Um,
They should be pretty good, man.
Apparently, we can record in a crowded McDonald's with really obnoxious music playing and get good sound.
With
On
the
my
terrible.
with a terrible mic on my computer. Hopefully, his computer is going to be even better.
Yep. So,
What are we looking at today?
well, we're gonna start off with.
Actually, I think perhaps we should, before we show this cover, say a few words about who we're going to be talking about, Captain Atom. As I'm
Well,
sure they could tell.
We should introduce both comics before and then tell them. No.
I think it's in the title, though.
Okay then. Yeah. Good point.
Now, we should probably take care of the elephant in the room, or at least address it if we're not going to be pampering it and taking care of it. Captain Atom is an old Charlton Comics character. The version we have here is the DC Comics character after
DC
Right.
purchased Charles.
Yeah, after, I think, post-crisis. So, we've got a character who has a bit of history.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, enough of this history to have been the inspiration for Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen.
Who, well, the story behind that, of course, that Alan Moore originally wanted to use the Charleston Comics characters, but couldn't, so he made little copies of them.
Because, interestingly enough, this was when DC had acquired the characters, trying to reintroduce them. In order to popularize them, they were worried that they wouldn't be able to reuse the characters after Watchmen,
Because, well,
for various reasons.
Watchmen.
Unfortunately, it kind of works in a sense because some of these characters may have eclipsed their foundations in popularity. One of these may be Captain Atom, but at the same time, we can be responsible here, we can be mature here, and we can say that we're giving Captain Atom a new series, so naturally, as viewers, we can distance any associations with perhaps the more well-known Dr. Manhattan, and just look at him as Captain Atom as the writers intended him, without any sort of Watchmen invading our minds. So,
Shall we?
yeah, so that being said, my first question has to be, why the fuck did you make him look exactly like Dr. Manhattan? Yeah.
It looks fat when you do this.
Don't worry, we all do.
Yeah.
We're looking at Captain Atom, #1, who has,
Mysteriously transformed into Dr. Manhattan.
yeah, strangely enough, his design is looking, I wish I could hold up a picture of the old Captain Atom.
Well, we could show a panel of the old Captain Atom.
Yeah, the old Captain Atom. But he has a design, I think we could get an even better picture just looking at this page here, that somehow bears a much closer resemblance to Dr. Manhattan as a giant, glowing, naked blue man.
Yeah.
And
Well, we could
interestingly
describe
enough,
what he used to look like.
yeah,
Captain Atom, he used to look like kind of just like a normal kind of comic book man. Same build and whatever. But he was coated in this metal, so it was all shiny. And of course, he had his emblem, which he still has, which is just a Niels Bohr model of the Atom.
I believe it's actually I think it was a special suit that he wore in order to contain his atomic energy. Because he was reduced into energy
Yeah.
in this sense. But now he's sort of glowing and blue and bald and Dr. Manhattan-like.
Except for that emblem, of course.
Also, if you've ever played Street Fighter 4, he tends to pose like Seth, the final boss from that, quite often. But comparisons aside, I'm sure that the story will actually have a lot more to offer us. So, do we want to maybe talk a little summary about
Sure.
the story of this comic?
I'll do it. So, it's basically just Captain Atom going from place to place, kind of rescuing people from these really big disasters like a nuclear power plant meltdown, a volcano, a giant mecha type thing. And while he's doing this, he's really...
Natural disasters, volcanoes, nuclear meltdowns, giant mechas.
Well, I didn't say natural.
disasters.
anyway,
Just
yeah.
another day in the DC universe.
And as he's flying around helping people, he realizes that his powers might be detrimental to his own health as well as beneficial to having superpowers.
Yeah, his powers are getting a bit out of hand as he discovers that he can do things like manipulate the atomic structure of different things to turn metal into dust, or turn.
Lead into gold, you know, all that stuff.
He doesn't actually turn lead into gold.
But
Hypothetically, he probably could.
Yeah.
And also, he's in danger of simply
fizzing out.
being torn apart because the strong nuclear force holding together his particles
has gone weak. And not weak nuclear force, just gone weak.
Yeah, if he doesn't concentrate, he could just be fizzled apart.
Yep.
Now, naturally, I would say, shouldn't he be in some sort of special containment suit, which I think was invented for him for this purpose? Instead, here the explanation is that he holds together his particles.
By focusing really hard.
Yeah, maybe this suit is going to be coming down the line, but for the most part, that's his crisis that he's facing in this.
Yeah.
And, so yeah, it's kind of Discovery. This is post him having actually received his powers. This is.
But it does set up like a type of origin story where he's really learning how to control them.
Yeah, it almost feels like a second origin story since and also we're not sure how long he's had his powers at this point, but there's definitely new things to be discovered.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what do you think of this story now?
Well, I thought that the whole him, using his powers, but it could be detrimental, could be interesting, but it wasn't really focused on. It wasn't the main focus of the comic. The main focus was him just absorbing energy, which is kind of what he does: absorbs and then reuses energy.
That's his power.
And that's basically all he does. He's absorbing. Well, first he turns the mech into dust, and he discovers, oh wow, I can do all this crazy shit. But then it's just him flying into a nuclear reactor, absorbing the nuclear energy, flying into a volcano,
Let's
absorbing
not
the
talk
heat.
about what happens with the volcano, because that's actually a bit more nuanced, although that is kind of toward the end, and there's some unexpected things going on.
Yeah,
there.
but it's just kind of him exploring his powers, not so much. You get reminded that, oh, I could just fizzle out at any moment if I don't concentrate. But it isn't shown, it's just continuously told.
Yeah, I get the feeling that there's not really any main crisis that's driving the story. Well, naturally, the crisis of him possibly fizzling out, but I think that we're getting several distinct events that only last for a couple of pages, and each one of them is just kind of an action sequence that provides exposition as to what his new powers, or what this new experience might be involving. It feels like a lot of exposition, and it's told through action, which could be good, but I think that when the main action is just someone absorbing energy, which is a pretty cool power, but when you're not showing it in the context of a larger battle and you're just showing him absorbing lots of energy, it gets to be really boring.
And it really doesn't feel as coherent as I think it could. It just feels like him zipping from place to place instead of like one continuous thing. It's like he's flying somewhere, oh, a nuclear reactor, and then he goes and is flying again, as oh, a volcano, and he fixes that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And also I think that there's a lot of dialogue that is a bit redundant to kind of hammer home the point that he could fizzle out and he's discovering these new abilities to manipulate the structure of matter and energy, which I think, it's good that we're making sure that the audience knows. I feel that I know what's going on, but at the same time, it takes up a good chunk of the story. It's kind of like something similar in Mr. Terrific.
Yeah.
Where you have something that the audience is shown and that the audience understands, and then it's restated for several pages. So it feels kind of like it slows the story down.
Mm-hmm.
And do we want to talk about just the visual aspect? Not that big.
Yeah,
That's a spoiler.
there are some parts of the art that I like and other parts I don't. What I do like mostly is mainly focused on, I want to say Dr. Manhattan, Captain Atom himself. I like the way that he is colored, the way that he's drawn, where it does gives off this very energy kind of nuclear sciencey vibe. And I do like that. And you just see on this page, see how he uses his powers on the bottom, and everything looks kind of blurry, but it makes sense because he is just a bunch of energy.
I think it feels a lot less solid than some.
It does feel less solid, but
it feels almost like rather than ink, we're looking at colored pencil.
Yeah.
And I think
or even watercolor in some places.
Yeah, and I think that's good. And we do have again more
like this
cross-hatching
right
and
here, you
shading.
have him turning the mech into dust, and like it all looks very, very loose, but not.
Yeah, and we get the impression that, again, because this is about strong nuclear force,
Uh-huh.
we get the impression that perhaps even the molecules of the art aren't as
Yeah.
closely bound together as we might expect. And also, again, in terms of color, you have this really sort of eerie blue glow that he
Neon,
has.
very neon-y.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just like Dr. Manhattan.
But what I don't like is that because it has to have a coherent art style, when it translates to things like this panel, it just kind of looks incomplete
Yeah.
or simple and just not.
I think that when we get out of action sequences and into more mundane settings, it gets really kind of cluttered.
Yeah, and it just and it feels loose in a bad way, and like even here, like so. And I like the Doctor. I like Captain Atom. I like the way he looks. I like the action scenes, but because of that, it doesn't look as well when you're not in motion, I guess.
As opposed to some other comics we've seen which have had multiple art styles for different...
or at least
types
change
of-
it up enough to accommodate different levels of movement.
Yeah,
and stuff.
so it seems like a good idea, perhaps just not the most thoroughly thought through. And also, I will say, just before we get into letter grades and all this, DC has released the cover for Captain Atom number 4. I don't normally like to look ahead to covers because they tend to spoil things. Captain Atom number 4 has Captain Atom as a giant blue naked man walking in a war zone, setting things on fire while soldiers flee in terror.
Like that one part from Watchmen.
Yeah, no, seriously. They are really... Why are they playing up this connection thing? I feel almost like this is Captain Atom in name only.
Yeah.
And also, another thing I will say in terms of personality, I don't think we really get much of a sense of
No. But we do
Captain
know,
Atom is.
and that is one difference
Oh,
from
crap, I just realized something.
Captain Atom and Dr. Manhattan. That while Dr. Manhattan seems to know everything, Captain Atom does seem naive.
They use the hydrogen atom logo.
Oh, what the fuck, DC?
Isn't that Dr. Manhattan's symbol?
Yeah.
Ugh. Alright, so on a lighter scale, where would you put this?
I'd give it a C, maybe a C minus.
Yeah, I'd probably give it actually a D plus, because, I mean, I like the idea of the art, I like a lot of the ideas in it, but I just don't think that it's a particularly interesting or coherent story.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it might go someplace, but I think that this issue is really very... I think that it doesn't have enough strong nuclear force holding together the particles of the story.
Good. I agree, but I did like it a bit more. Just
So,
Yeah.
moving on, what else did we look at?
we
for
also
this video?
have Batman number 1.
Yawn, Batman number 1.
It's not like we haven't read Batman like the other stuff.
You know, it's true, he has appeared in probably like 5 other,
I think we reviewed one Batman comic a week so far.
at least.
At
Because then there's
least.
also the Justice Leagues.
Yeah. So, but we finally got just Batman, not Detective Comics, not Batman and Robin, just Batman.
This comic is the cover that they were showing with all of these are the books that are coming out as part of the New 52. This is probably the flagship title for the week. This
Yeah.
is what they've been advertising in every single comic so far. So-
and we finally got to read it. So,
Do we want to take... I mean, okay, maybe we should talk about who Batman is. Who's Batman, in case the audience doesn't know?
I'm pretty sure everyone knows who Batman is.
Alright, so we'll assume that our viewers are geniuses. Wonderful.
Okay.
Alright, so, but what is the plot of this story? Do you want to talk about it? Or should I?
Sure, I'll do it. So the plot is, it is more of a continuation than a reboot.
Yeah.
You're placed right in the middle of the action. You're expected to kind of know what's up with Batman and stuff like that. And if you've been reading Detective Comics, if you read Batman and Robin, you kind of already know. It's set in the same time, same universe, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So, I can't say it plays a part in the larger story, not quite yet until the very end.
It's a larger story.
Exactly. But like it kind of feels more like a Batman vignette than like a serial comic.
I thought I didn't get that sense.
I-
But maybe
I
we should
did.
talk about the story and then
Yeah,
we'll
let
see...
me
Alright.
get into that. So Batman is just fighting crime. We start with this big brawl scene in
Arkham Asylum.
in Arkham Asylum. Batman's fighting. Let's see. I'll just show you the page. This is a pretty cool page. All these guys, and it's just an all-out brawl. And
Also, in case we didn't mention, this is Bruce Wayne.
yeah, this
and,
is Bruce, not Dick Grayson.
Dick's back to being Nightwing.
Why don't you do this story?
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Alright, Bruce Wayne is fighting out a brawl in Arkham, and all this time we're seeing establishing shots of Gotham. He's talking in this inner monologue about what Gotham is, and the Gotham Gazette apparently runs an article, a column of what Gotham is. People talk about it. And throughout this entire fight, which is a few pages, not terribly long,
But very
he's talking
interesting.
he's talking to himself about this. Eventually, he's contained the situation. It turns out he was actually trying to get intel on a corrupt guard at Arkham. He talks to Gordon a bit, and then I think probably the most significant part of this book is that Bruce Wayne unveils his plan, making a big speech to rebuild Gotham, to make a new Gotham, to introduce, I would say...
New glowy buildings.
Yeah, glowy buildings. Made of the same sort of glowy material as Captain Atom. But no, to sort of bring new energy and revitalize the falling apart city, revitalize its transit system, so that, I don't know, maybe we'll eventually have, I don't know, because I can't answer that. So yeah, and that's mostly the idea, and then at the very end we kind of have him
Segue into a bigger
we
thing.
segue into the investigation of a crime that has been committed, and that's all I'm saying about that.
Then a cliffhanger. Want to go into the art, or what we thought about the
I
story?
think the story first.
Okay. I liked it. I did. The big battle in the beginning just drew me in, got me kind of entranced me. I was like, yeah, this is Batman. This is what he does. Just beats up thugs. But then they do segue nicely.
Garbage, so
But yeah, it goes from Batman, then to Bruce, then Batman again at the end. But it is very, I think it does have this nice flow provided by the inner monologue, what is Gotham. And that is a bigger part of the story. It's not so much a Batman story, because you are going from Batman to Bruce, from Batman. It is more about Gotham, it seems like, at least in this book, where the whole story, it's what is Gotham? Gotham is damned, Gotham is villains, Gotham is Batman, Gotham is all this stuff. And because it's more about Gotham than it is about Batman or Bruce, it gives it this coherency, that everything takes place in Gotham, it's all about Gotham. So even though you're switching locations, you're never kind of thrown out of the story.
keep talking.
Yeah, the guy was coming back and Adam just wanted to be interrupted. So I did like the story. I like I said, the big battle, got me interested. It never feels like it stops moving. There's good pacing throughout, I thought. Even the transitions from Batman to Bruce are smooth. It doesn't just feel like 1 minute he's Batman and then the next day he's Bruce giving a speech. So it's all very coherent. It all meshes very well together, I thought. And it was coherent and succinct and all that. I liked it.
Also, I will say, we've got a big cast of characters in this that we get to
Yeah.
see. I think that rather than, let's say, Detective Comics, which went straight into Batman
Versus
going
Joker.
on an adventure, this, I think, is more providing an overview of both Gotham and Batman. I know when Victor Hugo wrote The Hunchback of Notre Dame,
It was about friends.
it was
Well,
about
Paris.
Notre Dame.
Yeah.
The title of the book in French is Notre Dame de Paris, and that he sees the protagonist as actually being the cathedral. I almost get this sense for this book.
And they open on
Gotham.
a building that does look very cathedral-y, or very like a big building, a big important building.
And also, I believe that's Crime Alley.
Yeah, they open on
First,
Crime Alley, of course, where Bruce's parents were gunned down.
So what we end up having is something that does not seem to. It's Batman as the title, but it seems to be more about Batman's relationship to the city, and I think that that's established very well. I don't think that you really need a lot of action or even a really strong story, like in terms of what our main conflict is, because we have an idea. We have the idea of the relationship between Batman and Gotham, what Gotham is, and what Batman and what Bruce together we're talking about them like they're two
Doing
different
for
people.
Gotham.
What they're going to make Gotham become, what
Mhm.
they are going to do to Gotham, and then perhaps we get a suggestion of, kind of toward the end, and maybe more as our books continue, what Gotham can do
for Batman.
or to Batman.
Yeah.
So that's it's really not so much about a single mystery or about a single crime. I think it's about it's about the city.
What is
And-
Gotham to Batman, and what is Batman to Gotham?
And also, I kind of get the feeling that the big brawl in the beginning is like, it's Batman, let's throw
Yeah.
a bunch of villains at him. But then again, I think that's why a lot of people
Like it
Batman.
kind of feels
Villains,
like an
so-
opening sequence, like there'd be for a cartoon, and you have the opening sequence where Batman's just beating up a bunch of guys, and then so that's what it feels like, and so it drew me in. It was a good opening sequence.
So do we want to talk about visually?
Visually, it's confusing.
It's confusing.
Because I like it. It looks like Batman. It fits Batman a lot. It's dark. It's gritty. It's shadowy. Batman looks very good. All the characters are designed pretty well, I thought. But again, you have this kind of sketchiness on the detail in some panels. Not this one. I think this is a good, good splash page in Batcave. But let me look for just the next page. I think just in that panel over there, it just feels a bit incomplete, or like there could be more into it. I thought
I get the sense that when you get this really liney,
it looks better
darker-
from far away.
that when you get this liney, darker imagery, I think that sometimes when we get a look at characters' facial features in scenes that aren't just like fighting and all that stuff, sometimes they can be a little bit, I don't know, they can lose some stuff. Like there's one, I'm trying to find one panel that I thought of, it's around here somewhere, but that in terms of their, I think here, if we just look at the faces of these characters, that they're perhaps not as well defined as they
Actually, I
should
think
be.
that these two pages just make a great contrast, because you have the Batman parts look great. The parts where it's dark and gritty, and you have Batman, it looks great. But then you get to the not Batman parts, the parts where there's less motion or less stuff happening, and it looks too simple.
But I still think color-wise, it's done really well. Not just for the action-y, dark Batman parts, but also for the scenes that take place in Wayne Manor when we're looking more at Bruce. And there's this one great, I think it's my favorite panel in the entire book.
This one?
It's just a shot of Bruce with 3 generations of Robin in Wayne Manor. And I love the touch that Damien's the only one wearing sneakers, even though they're all in tuxedos. But I think that we get this real sort of warmth from it, the sense that I know a lot of people sometimes prefer to see Batman without Robin just as kind of the brooding, lone Cape Crusader setting off single-handedly on his mission to avenge stuff. But I think that it's panels like this that really do give a sense that there's more to Batman, that Bruce Wayne can be sort of this father figure, that we can have this sort of a warm setting. And I think it does things like that very well. So I think it paints a very complex picture of both characters and setting, although the complexity in terms of detail might not always be there.
So letter grade,
Yeah, where would you put this?
B plus.
B plus. I would. I'm wavering between a B plus and an A minus. The A minus would be more because I like it, and not necessarily because it's got exceptional qualities that bring it up to the A level. So I would say probably a B plus, but I'm very interested, and I'd really like to see where this goes. Also, I think this, along with Green Lantern, I think has some of the most potential for a long story. Not just in the issue, but in terms of what's ahead. So I'm definitely going to be looking out for the next issue.
Yep. So next video, what are we going to review?
Next video, let's review 2 other things. Not that.
Not this.
How about that?
Okay.
How
Wonder
about,
Woman and
Blue Beetle.
okay, Wonder Woman and Blue Beetle. Then.